Self-Revealed and Nick Duvall. I'm going to be talking about some
What's going on, YouTube?
SR stuff, some God stuff, talking a bit about ourselves, our journeys. Why don't you kick it off, brother? You can take it whatever direction you want.
Yeah, so I think we should start with Ben and I had a conversation earlier, and I told Ben that we were cosmic brothers because we've had a very similar background and experience that has actually led us to a very similar place. And when we were speaking, my phone got too hot in the sun and it cut off. And I thought it was a good thing that we should probably record our conversation because it was a really good, deep conversation. And we left off somewhere around how we define love. And I think we should pick it back up right around there of what we kind of define as what love is. Because I thought about even my description and some different ways to think about it. So why don't you tell them what your description of it was or is, whatever it is currently?
So I referred to the words of Paul, who describes love. He says, love is patient, love is kind, it doesn't seek its own. I'm going to get the order mixed up and add all these different things, but it's not proud, it's not boastful. It doesn't keep any record of wrong. It endures all things. It forgives. There's a few other things he says, but that's the essence of it. Love never fails.
Yeah. And so I said that it was in a self-sacrifice sense. And even listening to you right there about keeping no tabs or anything, I think that is still, I think we're talking about the same thing because that's kind of a form of self-sacrifice of someone did you wrong and you forgive them and you actually forget about it and move on because you love the person, right? And I had said that it was self-sacrifice in the sense that I think that's what Jesus did, and he did it in more than just his own life and sacrificing his body and his life. Like he was always sacrificing himself to everyone else the whole time that he was alive. Whether he did it through his actions or not, you can see that in the culmination of what his life was, that it was all meant for everyone else, for us to even, be able to speak about him today, right? So, like I said, listening to you again say that, it seems that we're actually talking about the same thing.
So my question, just reading the comments here, David would love a quick Nick intro. Watched his videos first time today about Job, very insightful. Yeah, maybe going back to telling our stories earlier, maybe give us a bit of an intro of your story, your background, brother.
Yeah, so I'll just start with how I got into semen retention and how I've landed here, basically. So when I was 21, I had met a girl, hooked up with her the same night that I met her. And this was in a different town than what I was living. So I drove back to that town one weekend to hook up with her for the weekend. I bought a hotel and I couldn't keep an erection. And I was in the military and I was 21. And so I go back to the barracks and I'm losing my mind. I am absolutely losing my mind looking at going to the hospital on base to go talk to a doctor and be like, brother, something's wrong with me big time. I need your help now more than ever. And so I was getting ready for work one day. I worked second shift and I got the urge to watch porn. And so something told me that was the reason. It was God, but I was told, like, don't watch porn. This is the reason. So I stopped and I stopped watching porn. And I got my redemption with her and many other women because that's what it was all about in the beginning, right? And I didn't know anything about no fap, semen retention, this stuff wasn't like so prevalent on the internet. And so a couple years passed, I had fallen back into watching porn, not knowing what was going on. And my life was just, you know, my life was in shambles and I was in shambles personally. So I found out about semen retention and just letting go of lust in general. And it's taken several years to get to the point where, similar to Ben, I don't, thoughts of women come in my mind, but I don't entertain them. I don't allow them to take up space, right? They'll pop in, and it is. I'll be laying in bed thinking about like a girl, beautiful girl at the gym pops in my mind, and I have to just let that go and go somewhere else. And I first started doing that a couple years ago, and that was when I actually got a grip on my own sexuality. Was letting go of it on that level that like you actually have to let go of all of it. But of course, before that came, I felt terrible about myself. I had to feel, you know, the emotions around doing what I did. I had to actually like settle the fuck down and feel those things and let myself feel bad basically and feel terrible. Not just kind of prop myself up as, a good normal person, right? I had to admit who I was and that it wasn't who I wanted to be. So yeah, that's kind of what has led me here. I'm 29 years old. So yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of guys are going through that same thing where they've made the decision to stop lusting, to stop fantasizing, but now they're getting hit with all of the pain, all of the buried emotions, all of the darkness that they've been running from for years. And I'm feeling for these guys because it hits you right at the start in those first few weeks, those first couple of months. But then it gets a lot easier. You still go through challenges, but it's those first couple of months that really I find guys are suffering, and I've got a lot of guys talking about how they just can't deal with it. What do you say to those brothers, and how did you get through those times?
Well, like I said, man, it was kind of just letting yourself experience all of it. Like the hardest part for me was being in public and being in front of people and not being okay, and being in front of people that I knew, that knew me, that loved me, and I loved them. And so, it was, it's kind of in the room that I'm not okay. Like people are. That was the hardest part for me. That actually brought up the most emotions for me is when someone would like reach out with concern. Uh, Personally, that's just I took that hard. I took that hard because I think as men we all kind of want to be leaders, so you don't want to be seen in that position. Um, but it is allowing it, and there's embarrassment around it. But yeah, it's really just allowing everything to be what it is, and just letting it happen, and understanding that it all passes. You might feel X way today, but man, sometimes you just need to go to sleep, and things are different when you wake back up. And just remembering that, having patience through the journey and understanding that a lot of things are have to untangle and unwind, and it could take a very long time. It turns out they never finish untangling actually, but in the beginning there's a lot of untangling and unwinding um, before before you get to a level of relative peace.
100%. So, what about now at this stage in your journey? What do you find is really challenging you the most? I mean, I know where I'm at. I feel day to day like I'm just at peace. I definitely still have things come up, but what about you? Like, what is grinding you at the moment? What is really challenging you or burning for you right now?
Yeah, man, that's a great question because I actually have had something that I've just recently realized that's been going on. I've had uh, thoughts and temptations of lust coming into my mind that are all coming strictly from a power and domination perspective. And I see it as the enemy, as Satan knowing exactly where to get me. I think that it's like my final. But it's probably not, but to me it seems like it's one of the big chains that I need to break. Um, and just staying steady through this because that's how I've been like attacked on it is from a power perspective. And again, I think that's like a base urge for men, like a very baseline level urge that men have. And so the lustful thoughts have come in ways, like I said, that are power centered, domination centered. Um, you know what I'm saying? You know what
Yeah,
I'm
man.
saying? It's like a
Yeah.
very it's like a primal deep urge. It's not just like I think about a sexy woman, right? Like it's a complete different type of urge
Mm.
that comes. Um and I think that yeah, I had to get over the phase of yeah, because the lust for women, you can kind of move past that a little bit, but once you do, right, new levels, new devils, it's like a lust for power now,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes I have sometimes I've had thoughts where as I've been going along, like I don't really care about dominating women anymore. I want to dominate men in the sense of challenging, competing, and fighting with men, like physically fighting. I'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
And I went through a phase where I was quite violent, and I did end up in a fight over it. Um, and that seemed like a level to me in my mind where it was like okay, I've gone from this to now this. This is the next like thing in my life that I have to overcome. Uh, and now I do feel like I wouldn't really want to partake in a fight like that anymore and battling a man. And yeah, it seems like it's more power based that um, power and like domination based. So
Can
yeah,
you give
great
me?
question. Thank you.
I want to go deeper in this because it's coming up with a lot of the brothers at the moment. Like I'm hearing guys talking about wanting to start fighting, and it's only in this last few days actually I've noticed that wanting to get into boxing and wrestling and just be in a fight. What what's a real life example of that for you at the moment where that's playing out? Where you're feeling this desire to have more power, to dominate, to everything you're saying.
Well, I'd say for the guys that are saying something about like the fighting thing, go punch a fucking bag. Like just straight up go punch a fucking bag and get good and train yourself and understand how to punch and kick someone and fight and stuff and you'll get that off. Like you'll be able to get that urge out. I don't think you should suppress it. I wrestled my friend he was here a couple months ago and we wrestled. We were camping and we just woke up one morning and wrestled each other. I think that's okay. Like we're almost 30 wrestling each other. It hurts a little more the next day, but like it is what it is. Um, how is it coming up now? Well, I'm doing YouTube. It's new stuff, so I have. It's hard to describe the thoughts that pop into my mind sometimes, but they're just not. Basically, I have temptations. I have temptations. I could lose myself doing this. I could lose myself by being on YouTube, and I don't want to. I refuse to corrupt my soul. If I have to, I'll delete everything. If I absolutely have to, if it comes down to the corruption of my soul. So I think that's kind of what it is now. Is that like there's things in front of me, and I have to be patient because if I go grabbing too much, like it's okay to grab, but but you got to let it like, it's like a stream. You got to let it float to you and then you can reach out and grab it instead of just running and jumping in the stream. And you can get it that way, but like you might end up drowning on the way. Um, so that's kind of how I see it is Yeah, just not letting YouTube and social media and stuff corrupt my soul for like the voice that I could have, for the potential money I could make. You know, these are all things that you think about that are like what could happen, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I find I've where my ego comes into this is feeling like I'm a teacher, or I'm an influencer, or I'm this or I'm that. And I you got to be so aware, because yeah, it can so quickly switch into, you don't even notice it. It switches into like, I'm the guy. You know what I mean? I'm the guy. And as soon as you're there, what I find is you start to lose compassion. You start to lose listening skills. Like, you stop listening to people who are suffering and you just start prescribing. I did this the other day in a call. I just started prescribing. I was like, well, this is what you should do. You know, this is what you should do. Instead of actually just listening to this brother who was in a vulnerable place and really like helping him to draw the pain out, I just went straight into telling. So I think that's one of the masculine ego things that we got to be aware of, is just remembering, you know, as the example of Jesus, sometimes it is the right time to tell. Sometimes it is the right time to, you know, say this is what you need to do, pull your head in, or this or that. But it's that fine line of really tuning into someone's soul and not just being like thinking like, I'm the guy, just follow me, just listen to me, blah blah blah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And what you said about how you don't even notice it and you just slip into it, and you know, the reasons not to do it is just like when you talked to him, you didn't serve him in the way that you could have, or in the way that you should have. And you know that, like, within yourself, Ben, more than anyone else, right? That weighs on your mind the most, that you let your sense of self get in the way of helping someone else, right? He might not even know. He might be like, man, that was a great call, right? Um, so, yeah, what you said about slipping into it quickly can definitely happen, and I think that's the main thing right now. Because even you and I right now, dude, we're little ants like wandering around in the YouTube world. If we get to like 100,000 subscribers, like who are we then? What do we become then? Because it is something to remember, yeah, that like although people listen to you, you're a student, and if you're not a student of life, nobody else will learn from you because you
100%.
never learned.
Yeah. So I just saw a brother asked a question, and we can tie this in with what we're saying. What's your experience with being vulnerable, particularly with women while on SR?
You know, I don't think that I have too much experience with that. I don't think I'm the guy to talk about it. I'll tell women that I won't sleep with them or do anything sexual. I try to explain it to them. Maybe I'm just not vulnerable. Yeah, usually I'm not. I'm not comfortable because I haven't been around the right girl to feel comfortable to tell her the deep reasons why.
Yeah,
Be quite honest. Yeah, I still think that I would be attacked in some way, shape, or form, so I don't let my guard down fully. I just tell them it's something that I do, you know, and it's for me. And yeah, yeah. So maybe you should answer that question.
yeah. I know the brother who asked this question, and he was asking, or he was sharing his experience recently as well, about how he would get to a certain point with women in any kind of relationship, and up until that point he'd be very cold and sort of detached. And then he would reach this certain point where he'd be like, all right, I want to be vulnerable. I want to almost test this woman to see if she's worth being with, if she's willing to be real. And so at that point, he would start talking about God and, some of these deeper topics. And he'd say that without fail, every time, the woman would get turned off and she would just leave the picture. And I really felt when he said that, because I know that experience, I know how that feels. And it kind of speaks to a couple of things. It speaks to the culture right now and maybe the rarity of finding a godly woman, and also the fear that we have as men of opening up and not being accepted for who we are, on that most vulnerable, deep level. What in your current position, you've committed to being celibate until marriage. Do you have that fear come up that maybe there are no women out there who will accept you for who you are, or the bitches are just too cooked these days, as you subtitled one of your recent videos?
Bitches are cooked, man. The bitches are cooked. The wives are not cooked. Yeah, well, even like right after I finished speaking and you started speaking, I realized the only woman I've ever been truly vulnerable with, she ran away. So no, I haven't been vulnerable with a woman since. Um, and my last girlfriend even said to me that I've never trusted her. She knew that I didn't trust her. So perhaps that's something I need to overcome, but I don't believe I've met the right woman. And then in the sense of what you just asked, ask the question again.
So, do you believe that as men, we can ever truly be vulnerable with a woman? Or is it actually just our place to always be strong and only be vulnerable with brothers? What do you
Yeah,
see?
yeah. I think there's all right. There's a line. I think your deepest vulnerabilities, the deepest ones, you should only reveal around your brothers that you trust. Because if you think about a vulnerability, imagine you're a man with armor on. A vulnerability is a place that you can be stabbed that you don't know about. That's why it's a vulnerability. If you know about it, it's not a vulnerability. You can protect it. So, and I think your woman, if she loves you, she will be intuitive enough to know your vulnerabilities, and you should be intuitive enough to know her vulnerabilities without stabbing each other. That's the point of the love and the trust is, and I think that's what your woman is kind of there for, is that you don't have to describe your vulnerabilities to her. She can see them and see through you, and she knows that they're there, and she loves you despite that, despite your flaws. But I think that if you do reveal too much too deeply to her, she might view it as a sign of weakness, that
Mm,
you're acknowledging your weakness, right? Because that's kind of what you're doing. So that's kind of how I look at it. I know that makes it difficult, but perhaps on the other side, if you're like me and you expose things to the woman, it's difficult, right? Maybe it's difficult either way. And I think that ties back into the self sacrifice, in that you don't get to, in order to keep your family together, you don't get to expose your deepest feelings in front of your wife. You don't get to expose as much as you want to be comfortable around her and maybe cry in front of her or whatever, or just show her, your heart as much as you want to do that, you might not be able to.
mm, yeah, yeah. I definitely agree that it's not about words, because women aren't about words. They're all about energy. And as men, we're about words, and words mean things to us. But with women, it's not about that. And I feel that, yeah, we can be vulnerable without having to tell her the story about it. You know what I mean? I feel that that's definitely a place that we can turn to our brothers. You know, in indigenous cultures, in ancient cultures, they had segregation of men and women, where women would go off during the day and be with the women, and during the day, men would go off and be with the men. And then in the evenings, the families would come back together. But other than that, they were with their own gender pretty much the whole time. And I feel like in this modern culture, we've come to a place where we feel like we all need to be equal. We all need to be the same. We all need to be able to tell each other everything all the time. And it's like, no, no, we need to be with our own kind because they will understand us and come together in those sacred times of union. But as soon as that balance gets out of whack, and we're spending too much time with our woman, and he talks about this in The Way of a Superior Man, we start to take on a lot of those feminine traits and we lose our masculine edge. And as soon as we lose our masculine edge, there goes the polarity in the relationship, there goes the attraction, and there goes everything. And a
The
lot of people,
relationship.
the relationship. And a lot of people be like, oh, well, the relationship shouldn't be about attraction and sexuality and polarity. But I'm sorry, that's what it is. Otherwise, what you got there is a friendship, brother. And it's not the way we're designed to be friends with women. We're designed to come together in polarity and create magic together from our differences. It's our differences which attract us to each other. So yeah, I know what you mean. Like, as much as you would love to pour out your heart to your woman, there are those places that you can't go. I'm just talking from experience, and that's okay. It's okay that you can't go there. And if you want to experience what it's like to go there, then do it. Experiment, see what happens. But it's like you said, you have to make a sacrifice as a man for your family, for your woman. You're actually doing it in a sense for her. You're showing her your love by holding back on some of those deeper vulnerabilities that you might want to just pour all over her. So,
Yep. It'll put her in fear. She sees you acknowledging your own weaknesses. She wants security, right? And that's going to put her in fear that her man is acknowledging his own weaknesses when there's other men out here competing with him, right? If she's on your team. So yeah, that's why I think the same thing, that there's levels of depth that you can't, because just like you said, the guy had said that he would talk about God in front of his woman and she would check out. Dude, you can date a Christian woman and do that and she'll check out. And it's very strange. It's very strange that
that's a really good point.
sometimes this, yeah, it's very strange that sometimes the sexes have a hard time connecting on God, like the opposite sexes have a hard time. And I think part of it is because they understand and experience God in that polarity, likely. Um, so they view God as different. And yeah, maybe they don't connect and bond over it so much. Um, and there's those differences. But yeah, even just deeper concepts in general. Like I sorry guys, but not all women are bimbos, but they're more bimbos than men are. Like we're a whole lot more toolish than they are. We're a little more useful, and they're a little more pretty. I think we can kind of declare that, right? Like we're good and useful. We can work and use our hands and stuff, and they don't really do that as much. So they don't have to be as well versed and smart as we do, and so they get to enjoy not having to be so cerebral and think.
100%. They get to just flow with the energy.
Yeah, must be fun, must be nice.
So I got a question here from a brother. What are your experiences with finding brothers on this journey? Has it been a lonely path for the most part?
Yeah, absolutely. This is I've only met one man in my life that I had never spoken to about celibacy who was already celibate. And it's been, 6 years of me doing semen retention since I was 23. So I've only met one person, and I met him about a year ago. Uh, Friends, I've led people to it. I've had other people do it. Um, People that I've been friends with that I've talked to, and they've all had the same experiences as myself and everyone else. They all understand. One dude ended up getting married to the woman that he met 2 weeks after retaining. He hooked up with a woman and he got married to her, and they have a family now. They're still together. So that's been honestly that's been the most rewarding part when it comes to being alone is being the guy that can be someone that other people look up to and be an example. Even if they're not on the same exact path as you and they don't know what you know or understand what you understand, you can at least give them a little nugget, a little key, and you keep walking your path and they keep walking their path. But when you crossed paths, you handed them something. And you know, yeah, I guess that's just like a way to deal with the fact that yes, you will be alone, you will be separated. Um, it's I think it's just part of it. You really do separate yourself from the world and from most other people when you do this. There, you don't really have control over it, over the separation. It's not up to you. It's beyond you.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been alone for a long time. I've had periods where I mean, outside of SR as well, just in general, I've had periods where I've had close friendships, but I've always kind of gone back to being alone, and I've never really had a problem with it. It's actually something that I've found to be very beneficial, and it's allowed me to cultivate myself a lot of depth within myself because when you're with someone, it's like the energy is continuously trying to balance. That's just the nature of relationship. It's like you will just tend to merge with that person over time. And as part of that merging, you'll take on some of their traits, they'll take on some of your traits. So you can dilute a lot of your truth just through that act of being close to someone over a long period of time. I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing. I'm just saying that I think it's okay for us to be alone. For all you brothers out there who are feeling alone and walking this path by yourself, it's okay. And the further you go, the more comfortable you'll become with this walking alone. Going through periods of coming together with brothers and then going back to being alone, it's all good.
Yeah, yeah. So I think the message in that it kind of came from both of us is there's going to be periods of aloneness. There's going to be periods when you're with people, and you just take it whichever way it comes. Just accept what it is. That's the best way in my life to move through things. Is just to acknowledge what it is. So this is where I'm at, right? Even if I'm sad, like, all right, well, I'm fucking sad. Here's where I am.
100%. All right, we got some more questions coming in, and if you got any questions, Nick, or is there anything you want to say, just jump in. But I've got a question here. What is the end goal of doing? I'm thinking it's SR for Nick. Is it a lifestyle or for a specific goal?
Yeah, man, that's a big question. Overall, it's built my connection with God possibly more than anything else. So that's the main intention is to pursue whatever God has for me, and I have a better connection with God when I'm retaining. So a family, a wife and a family, and not cheating on her is a big thing for me. That's like the big first goal in my life is having a wife and a family and not cheating on my wife, right? Being able to retain and have that extra energy and be that man and be that guy for my family and give up some of my own sexual pleasure with my wife so that I can have more to pour into my children and my wife on the energetic sense, right? Like you talked about, it's all energy, and I think children are very, very, vulnerable to that. Um, so it's something that I want to do throughout my life because I also believe that biblical men were this way. I think when we were cavemen, we didn't have time to be fucking our wives every night. I don't think we had the space to do that. If you have to run from a wildebeest the next day, like you might get wrecked, bro. You might get wrecked. So I think that's where we came from, and I think we need to get back to that. So yeah, the first goal is finding a good wife and starting a family, but the overarching goal is to pursue whatever God has for me.
That's awesome, brother. Yeah, I'm on the same page as you. So
Yeah.
we're about 36 minutes in. I might go for another 10 or so minutes, but I want to know from you, what's your burning desire in life? I mean, I know that God is your number one, but what do you really want to do in this life? What has been revealed to you as a vision, or what you want to build or create in this world?
I just want to get families back together, get the genders to get along with each other. And I think it starts with men, because men are the leaders. And I think that we have to overall learn to control our sexuality to correct the culture and the society so people can actually. I think there's less love in the world right now because male and female are not coming together like they always have in love, right? They're coming together in lust. And I think it's kind of corrupted our world as a whole. So, as much as think that it's an uphill battle right now, I still think it's worth fighting for the people that will come to understand it. And, you know, one of the things I thought while you were asking your question is you're asking me like what I want to do and, kind of something concrete. And that's what I just said is like the most concrete I can put it down because truthfully, I can say what I want to do right now, but 2 years from now, it'll be different. So I don't care too much to concrete things. I can say what I think I'm doing, right? But it's it truly is God's will over my will, and I try not to impose my own will too much onto things because I've learned throughout my life that your will is full of pride. It's your will, and so your will tends to not be the most loving will that it could be. Um, so yeah, the like I said, bringing families together, and I think it starts with the men. um, to bring relationships together. Because even one thing that I think about, Ben, like you said, with the love of how it doesn't keep tabs, I think about all the modern women that are very corrupted. And if what I want were to start happening, the men would have to forgive these women in mass. They would have to forgive these women in mass, dude. Right? She's got 30 bodies. She's put all this porn out. She's tattooed, right? Piercings. She's just not the right type. And we as men are going to have to extend that first olive branch of forgiveness to pull the woman out of it. But
Yeah.
we have to pull the men out of it first to understand that like, yeah, bro, it sucks. It sucks, but you might have to swallow that pill.
Have you read the story of Hosea?
Hosea.
Yeah, an Old Testament prophet. This is some deep shit, man. And if your interpretation of Job is any indication, this story is going to blow your mind. So
Okay.
I'll just give you like the synopsis. Basically, Israel had rebelled against God. That's like the whole story of the Old Testament, right? And God had tried various different methods to reach them, sent all these different prophets, but they just wouldn't listen. So then along comes Hosea. And God says to him, Hosea, I want you to marry a prostitute.
Damn it!
Because I want the people of Israel to realize my pain. And this is what God's saying to us right now.
Yeah.
So he told Hosea to marry this prostitute, and then the rest of the story is this discourse on how Hosea's wife just keeps going back to her prostitution, even though Hosea pulls her out of the gutter, dresses her in fine clothes, adorns her with jewels, gives her a safe home to live in. She just keeps going back like a dog to its vomit. And it is a gut-wrenching story, but it's showing you the heart of God and how much love he has for his people. And I think as men, we have a lot to learn from that story about God's heart and the way he wants us to be as his examples, as his sons.
Yeah, absolutely. So I said, "Damn it!" when you said that, right? That right when he told Hosea to marry a prostitute, right? That's your own ego. That's your own ego. The first thing is you're like, "Damn it, God, no, no, no!" Like I'm gonna be the embarrassment of the town. I married the local prostitute, right? But God had a bigger plan, and I think that what you said about how I think you said like God did that to show that that's how He feels, right, towards Israel. So, in a metaphorical sense, we are the dirty prostitutes to God, but God is still in that marriage with us. He still has that connection with us. So, I think that's a beautiful story, and I haven't read that personally. I can't wait to get to it and read it for myself.
I'd love to see you do a video on that. That'd be pretty cool. Oh, yeah. We got some.
Yeah,
Hosea's love for Gomer is a metaphor for God's undying love for his children, even in spite of us and our actions. Nice, brother. That's on point. Peter says,
absolutely.
is Nick of the mindset of letting his goals he mentioned come to him, or he's of the mindset of going out and getting what he wants? Is it possible for the world to eventually become mostly righteous as a standard, or is that a pipe dream? I'll let you answer whatever you want.
Oh, wow. Okay. Um, you let the goals come to you until they're there, and then you go get them. And you have to know when they're there. Sometimes you'll even resist whatever it is, right? Sometimes whatever it is, you don't want to go reach after it because it's hard. But that's kind of how I approach my own life. Is that the stuff, the idea, the goals and stuff will come to me in my head, and when they're there, that's when I have to take action in order to make them happen. Um, and then what was the second part?
Is it possible for the world to eventually become righteous, or is it just a pipe dream?
Oh shit, brother. Man, I I think for our generation, it's a pipe dream. I think beyond our generation, the whole world might eventually become righteous, but I don't think that we're going to see it in our lifetimes. I think it's a pipe dream for me to ask for complete peace and everything like that. That's why I said perhaps my message is a losing battle, but I still think it's worth fighting, right?
Yeah, 100%. It's not about whether or not we ever see it come to pass. It's just about doing what we know is what we're here to do.
Absolutely. Moses, yeah, Moses never got to see the promised land, right? Never got to live in the promised land, but Moses was was a great man. We know about him today for what he did.
All the 300 Spartans, they sure as shit didn't get to see Greece liberated from the Persians, but they didn't care. All they cared about was going down, being who they were, what they believed in. So, brother, we're sitting at 45 minutes. We might finish it there. If anyone else has got any burning questions, you can just comment. Probably best to comment on Nick's channel or on my channel, because we'll just close the video there. Is there anything else you wanted to say, brother, or ask or put out there?
Nah, man, that's good. God bless everybody.
Before we go, I'll leave you one challenge, and I'll take this challenge for myself as well. I want to challenge you to reach out to another YouTuber and do an interview with them like this and ask them the tough questions, because I feel that we need to cultivate this thing. Like you were saying, we need to get these conversations happening, because these are the conversations, in my opinion, that matter more than any conversation that's happening on the internet right now. So let's keep this going.
Yeah, man. Praise God. That's a good challenge. I like that.
All right, brother. Thank you so much. Sending you love, and I'll chat to you soon.
Yeah, you too, Ben. Take care.
See you guys.